If our thinking is bogged down by distorted symbolic meanings, illogical reasoning, and erroneous interpretations, we become in truth blind and deaf. Aaron T. Beck. Welcome to the GigabyteSpyder podcast, where we talk about anything we want to talk about. After watching the show Bojack Horseman for the billionth time, I was inspired to take some time and contribute to the mental health discussion by relating the mental health themes in this show with my personal struggles with my own mental health issues. My goal with this episode in particular is to make a case for the importance of seeking mental therapy to better oneself and improve mental health. Here, I will delineate 5 broad benefits that having this therapy can give. These include achieving full mental awareness, developing habits for introspection and empathy, and managing stress in healthy ways. I am of the opinion that everyone, even mentally healthy people, can benefit from cognitive therapy, especially if they even remotely relate to Bojack Horseman as a show in any way. Full disclaimer, I'm not a licensed mental health professional, and any therapy acquired from friends, family, or certain activities aren't necessarily good replacements for therapy administered by a trained professional. If you need immediate help, there are hotlines and resources always available. Another disclaimer, I'll be using clips from Bojack Horseman that I think are especially poignant in illustrating my points. These clips may be considered spoilers by some standards. Some do mention certain details that rely on previous plot points, but the lack of full context for these clips makes me believe that they can be used without necessarily ruining the enjoyment of the show. So moving forward, I'm just going to assume that my listeners have already seen the show or aren't interested enough in the show to care about minor spoilers. Bojack Horseman is a show like ogres are onions. They have layers upon layers of solid writing, satirical humor, and themes that most everyone can relate to, and I want to demonstrate its relatability by sharing some of my own insights. Number 1. The first and biggest benefit from mental therapy, in my experience, has been able to acquire full mental clarity / awareness of my own actions. Checking oneself for having a clear presence of mind every day helps in recognizing certain patterns of one's own behavior and thought process. Expanding on this, having full mental awareness can lead to the following. A. Realizing a fuller sense of self. When I was growing up, I felt like I was on autopilot all the time. The things that I experienced every day just felt like, oh, this is happening now, I guess. This meant that I paid little to no mind to what relationships I had, what direction I wanted to take my life in, and other things that are supposed to help fill out who I was and should be as a person. A lack of social and mental awareness in relationships with family, significant others, or friends, in my experience at least, can result in unfulfilling lifestyles, constantly repeating arguments with others, and toxic behaviors that inevitably escalate in severity and wear down your relationships and your mental health over time. It can certainly play a role in substantial and recurring bouts with depression and related issues. Having a full awareness of who you are and what you want out of a relationship will keep you grounded from making reckless decisions and encourage you to make active decisions that shape your lifestyle and the future that you want to have. The titular character in Bojack Horseman, in many instances throughout the series, displays behavior that continually estranges him from many people who he considers to be his friends, and the idea of having a fallout with any of his friends makes him spiral even further down the rabbit hole of toxicity. He takes an awful long time to stop avoiding his toxic patterns and to sit himself down and make a true resolution to change, which I suppose is more true to life than what we want to believe. Having full mental awareness can also lead to B. Learning self-restraint. Being able to take that necessary step back to foresee the benefits and the problems of a given decision, even decisions as simple as initiating a conversation a certain way or saying an edgy joke, allows you to make these decisions more efficiently, meaning that you'll be able to spend less time in traumatic situations and more time in mentally soothing situations. Bojack is the prime example of someone who simply doesn't know the meaning of restraint. I shouldn't get into specifics because of massive spoilers, but suffice it to say that examples are aplenty. It's only in the later seasons after he's experienced some forms of therapy Does he have the mental clarity to exercise the self-restraint he needs to nurture and repair his relationships in a healthy and long-lasting way? And lastly, having this mental awareness can also allow you to process trauma in a healthy way. Understanding how past events during childhood and adolescence is essential to knowing your internal mental processes, and that lends itself to allowing yourself to move on from such trauma. Recovering from grief, rage, or any other emotional state brought on by being reminded of traumatic events in our past is certainly something that not everyone is born knowing how to deal with, and so we owe it to ourselves to have this full awareness of how our past has affected our actions in the present, so that we can healthily move on and not repeat this trauma to ourselves and to others. In one of my favorite moments in the entire show, Bojack finally pieces together the connection between his childhood trauma and his toxic behavior, thus achieving full mental awareness, and it's mentally liberating for him as it was for me.
Okay, you got me. My parents gave me an internalized self-hatred of horses, so my horse body is a prison that I can never escape. This manifests in rotten behavior because I subconsciously believe I deserve to be punished, but being famous, I'm never punished, so I act out even more. And since this pattern is so woven into my identity, it is unfathomable to me that it can ever be curbed. So instead, I drink. Check please. So the only way I can progress is to return to my life as a sober man and finally hold myself accountable for my actions, past and future. Oh my God, is this what therapy is?
Why do you keep bringing me checks?
The second benefit for acquiring mental therapy. Therapy encourages introspection, and introspection refers to the practice of self-reflection, to take a second and acknowledge the feelings one is having at the moment, the thoughts running through one's head, and the reasons these feelings and thoughts are happening. Regular introspection reinforces the mental awareness that I mentioned earlier, as well as some other aspects of oneself, like the following. Potentially toxic personality traits. These traits can include like being too willing to confront someone in an aggressive manner, or the complete opposite, too willing to avoid important conversations. Other examples could be undue eagerness, compulsive lying, and other actions that can prevent a relationship from feeling truly authentic or transparent for both people. Therapy can help to recognize why these traits can be toxic, and it encourages you to see them happening and allow you to change them if you want to save a relationship that's important to you. Or alternatively, it can simply help you make peace with the choices you've already made. In my case, seeing the flaws in my personality has helped me save long-lasting relationships that I have, and helping me to make peace with cutting out certain people from my life, even if I genuinely care for them. Knowing where these potentially toxic traits come from in the first place is also a powerful way in recognizing that they're not necessarily tied to your identity as a person, that they're changeable with concerted effort, and that they were possibly introduced to you subconsciously as a child by problematic adults in your life. For example, Butterscotch Horseman, Bojack's father, actively blamed his son for things that are out of Bojack's control, and this theme of misplacing blame on others is a consistent thread that contributes to Bojack's behavior as an adolescent and as an adult.
It was a couple hours later when I realized I was on a good run with my novel. I had this really interesting sentence that kept going for pages and pages, and I thought about how rare it is to really get in the groove like that. How most days I can't concentrate because my idiot child is blasting the television, and it suddenly dawned on me. Hot cock on a rock, she never even picked up the little noise and snot factory. So, here I am, being your mother, which I know is giving you all sorts of mixed up ideas about gender while your brain is still loose and stupid. Just remember, if you become a queer later in life, this isn't my fault. Don't just sing those songs in your nightclub act called My Daddy Was My Mommy while gazing longingly at a tangled string of pearls. Pearls are for ladies, Bojack. Pearls are for ladies. You know Sunday's my writing day. Sundays are the one day that are just for me and my craft. And still, you and the black hole that birthed you conspire to ruin it for me. What am I supposed to do now? Just go back to writing? I'm out of the zone now. The whole day's shot. All because of you and that brittle wisp of a woman you made the mistake of making your mother.
Introspection also prompts one to find their own life goals and values. Do you have a long-term goal that gives you motivation to wake up every day? or maybe a series of goals that are always there to inspire you. In my experience, being productive and creating things that others may appreciate helps me feel like I've made the most out of my day. Otherwise, I get a twinge of guilt and frustration with myself, asking myself, what did I do all day? I wasted a perfectly good day to have done something worthwhile. And then that can snowball into a bigger and bigger creative/mental slump before I somehow break the cycle and do something. That's how I end up starting so many creative projects that I've yet to really reach their full potential. Having the motivation to get up every morning is something we all struggle with sometimes, but finding that motivation can ultimately whittle down to understanding the core life values that one holds dear. Productivity is a value that I have, but it may not be one of yours. Perhaps relaxation is a value in itself for one of you listening, or maybe just being alive is a value in itself. Introspection allows one to take inventory of one's own life values, and there are therapeutic exercises like a core values assessment that may help people get into the habit of introspection if it's not an easy task for them. I've recently done a core values assessment myself, and I find it beneficial as a tangible reminder of the kind of person I should strive to be when life gets challenging. So therapy can not only help you understand what your values are and why they are important, but also where they come from, maybe from a place within yourself, or perhaps they were forced upon you by the actions of people and the culture you grew up with. In Bojack's case, his toxic need for social validation fueled his interest in acting, which itself fueled his need for social validation. Yet still, he also experienced childhood trauma in being forced to perform when he didn't want to. And this trauma shows up again by him saying it to another character later in life.
Go out there.
I can't.
Can't? Lives in a house on Won't Street. You will not embarrass me in front of the entire supper club. I told them you were going to sing the lollipop song.
But I don't feel like singing.
Nobody gives a damn what you feel. You've got an audience out there, and they want to hear you sing. Now, you want your mommy to love you. You go out there, and you do the only thing you're good for, which is singing the goddamn lollipop song.
And how about Sarah Lynn as Sabrina? Isn't she wonderful?
Oh, thank you.
Sarah Lynn. You remember that name.
Back to one, everybody.
Hey, you see those people?
Yeah?
Well, those boobs and jerkwads are the best friends you'll ever have. Without them, you're nothing. Remember that.
Let's take it back to Prickly Muffin.
Your family will never understand you. Your lovers will leave you or try to change you. But your fans, you be good to them, and they'll be good to you.
We are rolling. Sound speed.
The most important thing is you gotta give the people what they want. Even if it kills you. Even if it empties you out until there's nothing left to empty. No matter what happens, no matter how much it hurts, you don't stop dancing, and you don't stop smiling, and you give those people what they want.
And action.
Why aren't you dressed for school, Prickly Muffin?
The third benefit of seeking mental therapy. Therapy often guides you to challenge old habits and ways of thinking. Consistent introspection and striving for complete mental awareness can then help one make direct changes in lifestyle or habits that can encourage whole new ways of thinking to replace old ones. While it's true that the neurons in our brains are not typically replaceable, the connections that they make are certainly changeable. This means that if one conscientiously makes decisions that consistently go against toxic behavior that has always been normal, these new decisions will start to feel normal just the same. I remember when I was in high school, all the cringy and douchey things I would do to people around me. Because of who I was back then, the friendships and former love interests I had never really felt real or authentic to me. But since then, I've been able to use those memories to remind me about why I need to act better. Thankfully, it does get easier to be better every day, as the anonymous jogger who happens to be a Japanese macaque said to Bojack when he's trying to get back in shape.
Ow, crap. I hate this. Running is terrible. Everything is the worst. Oh my god. Oh my god.
It gets easier.
Huh?
Every day it gets a little easier.
Yeah?
But you gotta do it every day. That's the hard part. But it does get easier.
Okay.
I do want to add a caveat that for a lot of people, it's not as easy as just flipping a switch and having the will to just change behavior. It's especially harder when you've got an internal monologue that isn't necessarily kind to you. I've got a monologue as well, and I often find myself trying to debate him all the time, as if I'm defending myself from putting myself down. Bojack Horseman as a character embodies this concept of an internal monologue in its entire 6-season runtime, but it's especially highlighted in this episode called Stupid Piece of Shit, where his internal monologue is constantly criticizing him and prevents him from making healthy and prudent decisions.
Hey, Bojack, we need milk.
For the baby.
For the what?
Where is the baby? I just saw him.
Can I borrow your car?
What baby?
I don't know. Tina's gonna make breakfast. She needs milk. Can I take the car or what?
Shit. I don't want her driving my car, getting her grubby hands all over everything. She's not grubby, she's your daughter, you piece of garbage. You're a piece of garbage. A real shitty piece of garbage. Okay, think, idiot. If she takes the car, then you're trapped here with Mom and her spooky lazy eyes. But if you get the milk and leave Hollyhock here with Mom, then she can tell her things about you. Poison your own daughter against you. Is that what you want?
Okay, how about,
Hold on. Oh shit, they're all looking at you. Say something, dum-dum. Open your idiot dumbass mouth.
I will get milk.
Milk. What are they talking about right now? Probably you and what a dumb piece of trash you are, you fat sack of idiot.
Why don't you do the world a favor and swerve into oncoming traffic?
No, you don't deserve to die young. Only the greats die young.
Oh, now you think you're young all of a sudden.
One drink. Whoa, is it night suddenly? Idiot. What'd you do all day, piece of shit? That's a day you'll never get back. What was that? You're a real piece of shit.
Where have you been? Did you get the milk?
Challenging old habits also includes making the effort to see situations from other perspectives, i.e. empathy. It takes a self-aware mind to see how one's actions might be perceived by other people despite the intention, and having this perception helps to build patterns of empathy. For example, maybe instead of approaching friendships and romantic relationships as ways to serve oneself, one can use empathetic thoughts to instead ask, what can I offer to benefit my partner? In an ideal situation, all partners in a friendship or romantic relationship should benefit each other in just the right ways, because it's their empathy for each other that naturally informs their interactions. Empathizing with others can certainly be a challenge for those who aren't too socially adjusted, but it can be built over time, and in my experience it's been a sort of feedback loop, where it's my empathy for others that challenges me to be a better person, and it's my strive to be a better person that prompts me to be more empathetic to others. The result is having a level of awareness about others that not only forces healthy bonds, but also helps in recognizing the lack of empathy from where it exists. In many abusive situations, it's the lack of empathy from the abuser that allows them to hurt their partners without guilt. Most of us don't even want to risk being seen as abusive, so empathy is an important tool in preventing harmful relationships in general. Moreover, if one is lucky enough to not have any severe mental problems, empathy can help to recognize their symptoms and thus have respect for those with depression, PTSD, dementia, and others. Bojack, for example, rather than finding pleasure in mentally torturing his mom for revenge for his childhood abuse, which was indeed the original plan, he instead finds the empathy he needs to comfort his mom suffering from dementia when he dropped her off at her last nursing home.
Who is that?
Ugh. Bye, Mom.
Bojack?
Mom?
But Bojack? Is that you?
Yeah, it's me.
What is this place?
This is where you live now.
No. Is it? No.
Mom.
Where are we, Bojack?
I just told you.
I don't understand. Where am I?
You're in Michigan.
Michigan?
Yeah, at the lake house.
I am?
And it's a warm summer night, and the fireflies are dancing in the sky, and your whole family is here, and they're telling you that everything is going to be all right.
Yes, that's right. What else?
The crickets are chirping, and the lake is still, and the night is full of stars.
I can see it. It's so clear. What are we doing here, Bojack?
We're sitting on the back porch, and we're listening to your brother play the piano, and we're eating ice cream. Vanilla ice cream.
Yes, that's right. Oh, it's all so marvelous.
Can you taste the ice cream, Mom?
Oh, Bojack,
so delicious.
Bojack's mom is a character with her own backstory that allows many of us to feel empathetic for her despite her abusive parenting, and therapy can be crucial in building this habit for empathy if it doesn't come too naturally. I briefly mentioned this before, but by challenging old habits and thoughts, one can learn to foster and maintain healthy relationships. Part of making healthy relationships is learning what boundaries you should keep and enforce with different folks in your life. This is especially important in family scenarios where one finds more stress than love from their family members, which I can certainly relate to. It can be difficult to draw these lines in the sand, but it's often necessary if one wants to remain a sane human being. Another part of healthy relationships is to know and communicate what you're looking for in a relationship so that no one feels manipulated or hurt or otherwise caught off guard by your actions. One thing that I'm hoping society normalizes at some point is having expectations be known at some point during the first date. Because if one partner is just looking for a fling while the other is looking for a monogamous partner, they're most often going to just assume that they're looking for the same things. And then they get shocked when they realize that they're operating on different terms and conditions. It might be challenging at first, but having the empathy, confidence, and resolve to know right away what you and a partner want from a relationship will save everyone time and heartache down the line. Relationship therapy is all about settling expectations and having partners make healthy decisions for both themselves and for the people important to them. Another one of the show's main characters, Princess Carolyn, consistently finds trouble separating her business life from her personal life, and that leads to complicated and uneasy relationships between her and her clients as an agent or to her significant others, which are sometimes the same people. The fourth benefit that I found mental therapy to offer is that it offers healthy ways to manage stress. These can include learning stress reduction strategies. How can you prevent yourself from having anxiety attacks in public areas? There are various techniques that can be done to prevent anxiety attacks from escalating, like the grounding technique that's portrayed by the character Hollyhock.
Okay, Trey and I will be in the coat room doing hand stuff. Otherwise, you don't know anybody here.
Hey!
Sorry.
What do you see?
What?
You're having an anxiety attack, so look around the room and tell me what you see.
I see people partying and passing out.
What else do you see?
Books, pizza boxes. I see light fixtures. I see an odd amount of floor poofs.
Okay, now say your name.
Hollyhock.
Last name too.
No, we'll be here all night.
You feel any calmer?
Yeah, actually. A little bit.
It's a trick my psychiatrist taught me. It's supposed to help you ground yourself.
Thanks.
What can you implement in your daily life to incorporate stress relief on a regular basis? These can include activities that allow you to turn off your analytical brain and allow you to be creative instead, like creating artwork or writing. These activities also allow you to express feelings that are not good to bottle inside forever. Having an outlet to externalize your stress and to keep them out of your system is what can allow you to see the stress for what it is, recognize how normal it is, and promptly move on from it before it snowballs into something too big to handle on your own. One of the other main characters in Bojack Horseman, Diane Nguyen, feels a need to externalize her childhood trauma in a book of essays she's writing, but she finds it very difficult to truly express the full extent and severity of her trauma. In a bout of creative inspiration, she ends up finding it easier to write about her trauma indirectly via a children's fictional novel series. She's conflicted because she believes that there's more prestige in writing a gritty, straightforward memoir about her trauma, but she's able to write about it so much more fluidly in the escapades of a fictional character instead. She ultimately recognizes that the latter style of writing is not only more therapeutic for her, but it's also a more accessible way for her work to be read and understood by others, and that makes it all the more cathartic for the trauma she's endured.
If I don't write my book of essays now, I never will.
So, don't write your book of essays.
I have to.
Why?
Because if I don't, that means that all the damage I got isn't good damage. It's just damage. I have gotten nothing out of it, and all those years I was miserable was for nothing. I could have been happy this whole time, and written books about girl detectives, and been cheerful, and popular, and had good parents. Is that what you're saying? What was it all for?
I don't know, Diane. All I know is that this book about the girl detective is fun. I liked it. I like thinking that my daughter could grow up in a world with books like that. Or if my daughter's not a reader, a lucrative film adaptation.
When I was a little girl, I thought that everything, all the abuse and neglect, it somehow made me special. And I decided that one day I would write something that would make little girls like me feel less alone. And if I can't write that book,
Then maybe write this other book. Maybe this book does that too.
Yeah?
Part of using mental therapy for stress management is also recognizing where the stress comes from. What are the most common stressors in your life? Is it family, friends, coworkers, your living situation, your workplace, etc.? Why are these things stressful to you? Do you feel pressured to act a certain way that doesn't feel natural to you? I have a little bit of every one of these questions, and it can be difficult to come to terms with knowing the answers, but this is all part of the process in acquiring a full understanding of where your life is, what your life patterns look like, where they came from, and where you want to be in the future. What can you do to change how you approach potentially stressful situation? Sometimes you might just need to communicate better, or just change jobs. Other times you may need to find a whole new inspiration for your outlook on life. Or at worst, you may need to cut out the stressful people from your life altogether, even if they're family. There are many examples in the show about how much of a traumatic impact Bojack's parents had on Bojack, but at his mom's funeral, Bojack goes on a monologue about his family dynamics, exhibiting several stages of grief in the process. He recognizes that a great majority of the daily stress he's worked through come from his relationship with his parents. He understood how toxic they were to him, and that leaving them out of his life would be absolutely cathartic, yet he still feels empathy for them because they were his parents. He's stuck between feeling sad that his parents are gone, but also feeling some sense of therapeutic relief at the same time, and he sums up this feeling of emotional limbo by stealing a line from his mom when his father passed.
Would have been nice to have something to show for being the son of Butterscotch Horseman. My darling mother gave the eulogy. My entire life, I never heard her say a kind word to or about my father, but at his funeral she said, "My husband is dead, and everything is worse now." My husband is dead, and everything is worse now. I don't know why she said that. Maybe she felt like that's the kind of thing you're supposed to say at a funeral. Maybe she hoped one day someone would say that about her. My mother is dead, and everything is worse now. Or maybe she knew that he had frittered away all her inheritance and replaced it with crippling debt, which is a pretty shitty thing to leave your widow with. Bad news, you lost a husband, but don't worry, you also lost the house. Maybe Mom knew she'd have to sell all her fancy jewelry and move into a home. Maybe that's what she meant by everything is worse now. Is that what you meant, Mom? You know what it's like? It's like that show Becker, you know, with Ted Danson. I watched the entire run of that show hoping that it would get better, and it never did. It had all the right pieces, but it couldn't put them together. And when it got canceled, I was really bummed out. Not because I liked the show, but because I knew it could be so much better, and now it never would be. And that's what losing a parent is like. It's like Becker. Suddenly you realize you'll never have the good relationship you wanted. And as long as they were alive, even though you'd never admit it, part of you, the stupidest goddamn part of you, was still holding on to that chance. And you didn't even realize it until that chance went away. My mother is dead, and everything is worse now. Because now I know I will never have a mother who looks at me from across the room and says, Bojack Horseman, I see you.
This entire episode, one that comes highly regarded as one of the best in the series, is an example of how real this emotional limbo is for all of us. That it's not always that simple to just cut out toxic people we've known our entire lives, yet we understand that doing so would do wonders for our own mental health. As part of managing stress, one can also learn to anticipate stressful situations and prime oneself to minimize the stressful effects. An example is being able to adjust communication habits for different people to prevent conflict in your social circle, your romantic relationships, and your family. In my case, my paternal grandma is not very good at speaking English, and I don't know enough Vietnamese to chat with her that way, so I find myself having to simplify my language for her to understand how I'm feeling or what I'm thinking. It may not be gratifying to not be able to fully express my thoughts to her, but I'd rather deal with that stress than the stress of trying to get her to understand the full breadth of complex topics like feelings. Anticipating stress can also lead oneself to learn the warning signs of toxic personalities and prevent future relationship stress. In the show, when the character Wanda wakes up from a 20-year coma, she's able to bond with Bojack because she wasn't present when Bojack rose to stardom, and therefore wasn't around when he exposed his toxic traits. They become smitten as a couple, but unlike Bojack, she appears fully aware of her actions and who she is, and that leads to them breaking up relatively soon because she knew that if she didn't cut Bojack out of her life now, she's opening the door for future unnecessary stress, even if she does care for him a huge amount.
Well, I'm sorry that things have been so hard for you, but that doesn't give you the right to be shitty to me. I can't be around someone who's just fueled by bitterness and negativity.
Well then, what are you doing here?
What happened, Bojack?
Same thing that always happens. You didn't know me. Then you fell in love with me. And now you know me.
You know, it's funny. When you look at someone through rose-colored glasses, all the red flags just look like flags.
Being mentally mature enough to suffer through the lack of contact with someone you care about in order to prevent future heartache is the foundation for preventing oneself from being involved in potentially abusive relationships. Therapy is crucial to building this mental skill set for this important aspect of self-preservation, an aspect that we all owe ourselves if we don't want to be hurt and manipulated by unscrupulous partners. Lastly, therapy can help in finding happiness in your life regardless of your situation. With introspection and self-awareness, one can find their passion or personal purpose to give their life stability and plannable structure. One can get actionable advice to navigate healthy and long-lasting relationships. One can find contentment where it would be easy to go insane. If I were to attempt to sum up Bojack Horseman as a show, it would be that there's balance to be struck between acknowledging the harsh reality of life when it hits you and embracing the positivity where it can be found. Some of us do cope with sadness and anger by finding ways to joke about things, and making light can sometimes work to our advantage when we need to accept reality. When a teenage pop star like Sixtina Aquafina makes a catchy song about abortion, it's foreseeable that people might indeed relate to the teenager in this clip.
Sixtina's music makes me feel strong, like I can do anything.
It doesn't offend you?
Getting an abortion is scary, with all the protesters out front and how you have to listen to the heartbeat and all that. And when you can joke about it, it makes it less scary, you know?
Yeah.
Therapy is the process of acquiring mental clarity and awareness of one's own actions and history. Knowing the sources of your thought patterns is the first step to changing them in order to make your life more bearable day after day. Everyone deserves to feel like they're in charge of their life, that they have the agency to direct their life towards a place where they can feel authentic to themselves, where they don't have to be in eternal conflict between who they are and who they want to be. Bojack Horseman is a show that showed me how important it is to have mental therapy, even if it's not through a licensed therapist, although that is recommended. So many of its story threads, characters, and premises are relatable to so many people, and it expertly balances its gritty reflection of reality with poignant humor. There's this one episode I really like called Stop the Presses, where Bojack calls the LA Gazette to cancel his subscription, but instead he gets an impromptu therapy session with the executive. By the end of the episode, not only does Bojack keep his subscription, but his therapy sessions with the newspaper executive gives him much needed perspective on himself, how his trauma and toxic behavior are intrinsically related, and how such things affect his relationships with others. This is a revelation we all need in our lives someday. There's also an episode where the A and B plots are told by a therapist and her wife, a corporate mediator, but I don't want to get into too much detail to make this podcast episode longer than it needs to be. Needless to say, the humor is peak Bojack in my opinion.
It must be so hard to lose a loved one. I, for one, never have.
You've never lost a loved one.
When my mom got old, she moved to a farm.
What?
Out in the country, where she could have plenty of room to run free.
Why would she want to run around if she's old?
You know, I never really questioned the logic. My brother set the whole thing up. I haven't been able to visit, but everyone in my family goes to that farm eventually.
Oh, dude, your mom's dead.
What? No, she's at a farm after a prolonged bout of Parkinson's. A farm where they don't have telephones or the internet, and oh my God, she's dead. My mom is dead.
Whoa.
Thank you for listening to this rather long and heavy episode of the GigabyteSpyder podcast. Since I've been feeling the benefits of having gone to mental therapy, I've been striving to normalize the discussion of mental health problems because it's most certainly just as important to one's well-being as physical health. Mental health issues and physical health are often interrelated and feed into each other. So I try to make an effort to get in touch with the mental side of myself and others just as much as the physical. I hope this podcast has been insightful for you. If it has, you can show it by dropping a like and consider subscribing to stay up to date on future installments. I'm also curious if anyone else can relate to what I've said or to Bojack Horseman as a show. The show is one of those shows that has so many levels of complexity that there's virtually endless points of discussion from it, and I of course highly recommend it for everyone. I'll give the final word for this episode to a YouTuber named Solari, who eloquently describes how Bojack Horseman has helped him with his mental struggles, and I find myself thinking the same things.
I've suffered from depression and anxiety for as long as I can remember. I have good days and bad days, and even writing and recording this video was hard because I find it hard to build up the motivation to do anything at times. I see myself in many of the characters in Bojack Horseman more than I'd like to admit at times, and although part of learning to understand yourself is through introspection, it can be really helpful to see how other characters deal with hardships you're familiar with, even if they are fictional characters or anthropomorphic animals. Fictional characters don't always have to be aspirational role models or a beacon of positivity. Entertainment can be escapism, but art makes you think about yourself and the world around you, and Bojack makes me do that. It makes me wonder how I can be a good person, how I can get better, how I need to try and stop making the same mistakes but not be angry at myself when I do, and how even though you can't change where you came from, you can work to change your future.